Hey, hello everyone. Hello. Excuse me. Hope everyone is doing well. Like to welcome everyone to another activity. I have an activity I've been doing that I wanted to share. That's been pretty helpful. It's been pretty powerful for some of my students, and so I wanted to share it. It is called Sounds, Shapes, and Strategies. So I did a video that is called Shapes and Strategies. It's an activity using different shapes, 5 different shapes, with breathing activities for each of them. All right, so we can review that very quickly, but the purpose of this activity is using sounds as a strategy, right? So a lot of times when we talk about our sensory system, we don't really think about how powerful sound can be. Okay, so sound is something that as a baby in utero, when we are in our mother's womb, we start to use sound to figure out how to respond to certain situations. Our heart rate syncs with our mother's heart rate based on the sound. We hear our mother's heart rate, and that is already telling us as a baby in utero how we should be feeling, whether we should be feeling stressed or we should be feeling calm, whether our heart should race fast or our heart rate should be slow. So, it's very important how a parent is keeping their own body and their own response to different situations, because as a baby, we are looking to that response to form our own response. Okay, so our sound is very powerful. Even as we're growing up, our sound sensation tells us a lot about how we should be responding to situations, right? If we think about when we're walking somewhere, even in a familiar place, right? Anytime we hear a sound, our brain starts to localize to where that sound is. Do we hear something coming from behind us? Do we hear something happening around us? Is it something that should set off a response where we should, panic or look for a way to get out of the situation, right? It's our stress response, our emergency response, right? So our senses are always trying to look for different things happening in the environment around us, but especially with sound. Sound is one of our first ones to react. So if we hear something in the background, right, it could be very closely related to our heart starting to race quicker. Maybe we're feeling like we need to get out of a situation, right? It's our fight, flight, or freeze response. So our brain, gets those signals through our senses, and one of our first senses is our sound. So we're going to do an activity today working on sound, because not only is sound something that can cause us to react to a stressful situation, but sound can also calm us down from a stressful situation. So I like to start with this activity because we can use this activity to kind of, first of all, develop a nice, calm, and a little bit more calm, at least, way to get into our activity, first of all. Second of all, it's fun to do these kind of activities because we're kind of building a trust. We're building a relationship through finding strategies together that help us to, regulate our systems, regulate our brains. So this way, if we're feeling full of energy, right, it doesn't have to be necessarily in response to stress. It could just be that we are excited, we have a lot of energy, and our brain is just telling our body that we need to have a faster heart rate, we need to have faster breathing rate, because we need to be able to respond to how we're feeling. However, whatever we're doing is making us feel. So these different breathing and calming and relaxation strategies can help to smooth and soothe our nervous system so that we're able to experience that situation with a lower heart rate, lower breathing rate, right? And be able to kind of feel a little bit more calm and in control. And it also makes it so that in future situations, we're able to react a little bit more calm. So those calming self-regulation strategies are really, really powerful, not just for current situations, but for future situations as well. All right, so excuse me, I want to show you this sound activity where we have 5 different parts to this activity, working on 5 different sound exercises that can help us to self-regulate our bodies. Okay, so first, if you take a look down here, this is our shapes and strategies activity. So there are 5 different shapes, all coordinating with 5 different breathing activities. So we have our square breathing, our triangle breathing, rectangle breathing, circle, and star. Right? Our square breathing, our box breathing was 4 seconds breathing in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds breathing out, 4 seconds hold. All right, the square, what's important to remember is that it's 4 equal sides. So no matter what sides we decide to do, no matter what amount of time we decide to do for each side, it just is important that they're all equal. So we can do 3 seconds in, 3 seconds hold, 3 seconds out, 3 seconds hold. We can do 4, like I wrote here. We can do 5. It really depends on the student, the child, the person, the individual, whoever is doing the breathing activity. Okay, our rectangle breathing is called a rectangle because it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So however much time is spent inhaling, double the amount of time is spent exhaling. So for the example, I wrote 3 seconds inhale, 6 seconds exhale. It could be 2 and 4. It could be 4 and 8. So as long as it's that 2-to-1 ratio, that makes it that rectangle breathing, which you can find as a counting breath or ratio breath. Okay, then we have our triangle, which is also 3 equal sides, but it's inhale, hold, exhale. So usually it's 3 seconds in, or usually I do 3 seconds in, 3 seconds hold, 3 seconds exhale. But again, it depends on what a comfortable breath feels like for you, for whoever's doing it, doing our breathing activity. Okay, then we have our circle breathing, which is just 1 big breath in, 1 big breath out. So I put 4 seconds, but again, it really depends. It could be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it just depends on what a full breath feels like for you. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so 4 is about middle, but you can always figure out what is comfortable and best for you. Then our star breathing, which is like a roller coaster breathing. It's just inhale as we move up, exhale as we move down. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. And depending how many points are on the star, you can have 5-point star or a 4-point star or a 6-point star, and it ends up being that many deep breaths. So I put 3 seconds just as an average, where it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, so these are our 5 shape breathing strategies, okay, that we can use for our sound strategy activity. All right, so let's get into our sound strategy activity. So what we need to do is we need to pick one of these shapes that we can use for our activity. So I like to do this shape and strategy activity first, just so we can get some experience doing our breathing with different shapes, okay? And then usually there's at least 1 or 2 shapes that we like the best to do the breathing for. So if we can choose one for this activity, why don't we choose our square breathing, our box breathing? So that's 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold. Okay, so we're gonna do just one shape for our activities. So it'll be our box breathing. All right, so we have 5 different activities. All right, our first one is just making a rhythm and practicing breathing for it. Okay, so what I want us to do is we're going to make a rhythm that goes 1 beat per second. So our heart rate likes to sync up to the sounds that it hears. So just like if we're listening to music, that slower pace music usually has a calming feeling for us. And faster paced music is something that increases our heart rate and makes us feel up and wanting to move around, right? If you think about music that makes you dance, it's usually a faster rhythm. And if you think about music that's calm, it's usually a slow rhythm or calming sounds, sounds of nature, right? It's very calm, very peaceful. What to remember with sound is slow, low, and rhythm is calming, and fast, loud, and off rhythm is alerting. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get a beat going, a rhythm going of 1 beat per second. So we can count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5, 6. Okay, keep going without the count. Okay, so now we can count these on our finger. Okay, and we're going to do our box breathing. So it's 4 seconds in, 3. And if you ever lose count, if you ever lose that rhythm, just 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. Okay, so our box breathing, we'll do 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold. Ready? So we'll go and hold and out and hold again. Hold out. One more time. Oh, hold. And one more time. Hold. Out. And hold. Whew. All right, so we can use any of our different shape strategies. And just what we're doing is we're just making a beat, either with a fist, with our hand. You can do both hands, and just going at 1 beat per second, which will bring our heart rate to sync up to it. And 1 beat per second will be about 60 beats per minute, right? So even if we're a little bit faster, so our regular resting heart rate is usually higher than that. So by syncing it to a rhythm that's a little bit lower, we're stimulating a calming response in our brain, okay, by syncing our heart rate to a rhythm that is slower than our resting heart rate, right? Just like if we want to alert and arouse our system, we will go fast. All right, so that's our first activity. So first activity is just 1 beat per second and doing a breathing with it. Our second activity is a cycle. So we're going to be taking our system through a cycle where our heart rate is going to go slow and it's going to go fast and then it's going to go back to slow. So it's a good thing to do is to give our bodies the chance to experience that up and down fluctuation, right? This way our brain can experience both sides of it in a controlled manner, and this way it can respond to different sounds and have a better response to different sounds, rather, so that, you know, if our auditory or hearing system is very sensitive, sometimes a little tapping of the pen or a quiet noise that might not be noticed by certain people or some people might be very loud and disruptive to others. So it helps kind of to promote a calmness to that system by giving it the experience of going through the cycle. All right, so for our second activity, we're going to start drumming, doing a loud and slow drum. So we could do one hand or two. We go loud and slow, 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 slow. On the count of 3, we're going to go loud, and fast. So we go 1, 2, and 3. Loud and fast, loud and fast. Okay. Now, on the count of 3, we're going to go slow and soft. 1, 2, 3. Slow and soft. Slow and soft. Okay. And now, last one, on the count of 3, we're going to go loud but slow. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Loud but slow. Loud but slow. Okay? So it's a cycle. So we start off loud and slow, then we go loud and fast, then we go slow and soft, and then we go slow and loud. So we go through that cycle. So loud and slow, then loud and fast, then slow and soft, then loud and slow. So we give our body that response of slow and loud, loud and fast, and then drop it down all the way down low to a slow and soft, and we bring it back up to where we started in that slow and loud. Okay, so we take it through a cycle. So also just feeling those extremes. And it's a controlled manner because we're counting, and gives our brain that experience of feeling the high and the low. All right, that's activity number 2. Activity number 3, is just a fun one I like to practice for just motor planning, following directions, following the sequencing, right? Where I would just make a couple of sounds and then have you, our student, our child, or whatever person is doing this activity as well, copy those sounds. So I might say 1, 2, 3. Your turn. How about 1, 2, 3? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. And you copy. Then I would give you a turn. So maybe you're gonna go or so just having some fun doing different sounds. You can count them to make a pattern. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, different kinds of sounds, different kinds of patterns. And also, it's just an interesting way to see what the other person is experiencing, kind of their own internal system, right? So if I'm telling you to make a sound and your sound is a rhythm, right? A kind of a calm, rhythmic sound, then that could be a representation of how you're internally feeling, right? If I ask you to make a sound and it's fast and it's not in a rhythm, a rhythmical, right? Just fast, right? Or as fast as you can, as fast as you can, right? Maybe that could be representing how you're feeling internally. All right, so then we move on to our 4th activity. Our 4th activity is we get back to our 1 beat per second. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Okay, 5, 6. All right, but now we're going to add another component, which is going to be either a snap or a clap. So with a snap, okay, and the clap, so it's the same pace. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5. Remember that the loud sound can be alerting too. So if we're doing a sound that's kind of seeming like it's alerting, not calming, then maybe you want to just be a little quieter, a little lower of a sound. You can always use the palm for a little bit of a deeper sound, so it's not as loud as the fingertips. Okay, so now we're back to our 1 beat per second pace, and we go back to our box breathing. So remember, it's 4 seconds in, 4 hold, 4 seconds out, 4 hold. All right, so let's try. Okay, you can count in your head or you can count with your fingers. So remember, counting can go like this. Okay, so with snaps, it would look like this. Sorry, 3, 4. I'm getting confused here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Okay, so let's try with our breathing. So we go hold, out, hold, in, hold, out, hold. One more time. In, hold, out, hold. Okay, so, and that becomes our box breathing. Remember, I'm just showing you just for the box breathing, but you can do this either just with a deep breath in, like our circle breathing is just 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. So circle breathing would be out, in, out. Okay, so circle breathing, box breathing, whichever shape you choose, right? I'm just doing these activities for the box breathing. Okay, but it depends which one you like the best, right? That's activity number 4. And activity number 5, we do drumming without using our hands. What do we use for drumming if we're not using our hands? So remember, we're getting good input every time we're hitting the table or whatever we're drumming on. So now we're going to get that input into our feet by stomping, right? Our foot drum is our stomp. So we get that pace back, that rhythm. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. Okay, and we add a breathing component here so we can count. Okay, so we're doing our box breathing, okay? So ready? Hold. Let it out. And hold. Other foot. Hold. Let it out. Last one, both feet. Hold. Let it out. Hold. Okay, so 5 different activities to use sound, either just drumming 1 beat per second and doing a breathing strategy. 2 is going through our cycle, starting at our 1 beat per second, but taking it very fast and loud, dropping it to very slow and soft, and then coming back to our 1 beat per second rhythm. Okay, our third one is just a game of copying where you can make your own beat and do your own pattern and share, give the other person a turn Okay, it's also a nice way to just gauge where the other person is feeling. So just hearing what kind of beat, what kind of rhythm they're making has been showing me kind of just a good gauge of where the student is, right? Just some students are making a rhythmic sound. Some students, when you give them a turn, they are bang, 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 going very fast, loud. So you can kind of just get a sense of where their internal rhythm is, right? Our heart rate syncs up with the sounds that we're hearing. So, it's a good representation of what's going on. Um, uh, I was going to say that also some of my students have been enjoying, some of my older students have been doing, and actually some parents are enjoying also, of just kind of keeping track of how we're feeling before these strategies and how we're feeling afterwards. So you can show how to take heart rate, right? You can show how to count respirations, breathing rate. Okay. And you can even just see what the heart rate is, what the breathing rate is at the very start before we do these activities. Then do our sounds, our shape and breathing strategy, right? Go through our activity. And then at the end, see our heart rate and see our breathing, our respiration, and see if there's any difference. So it's a cool way just to kind of keep track of what the experience is actually doing to our bodies. What kind of response is happening within us from these calming and breathing strategies. All right. So the third one was our game of copy. The fourth one is keeping our one beat per second, but adding our snap or our clap. Okay. Or you can do both. Okay, mix it up a little bit. And then our last one is keeping that one beat per second, but doing it with our stomp. So remember, you could go one foot or the other foot or both feet or add the hands. Just remember that low, slow, and rhythm is calming. So once we're doing slow, that's good. But that low, once that sound gets a little bit too loud, it can already cross over into the alerting side of our response. So just remember that if it's seeming a little bit alerting, that maybe you want to start to use the palm where it's a little bit deeper instead of the fingers, which have a louder sound to them, that palm. Oops, sorry, that's a bracelet. Okay, so it's a fun one to do. Again, it's building that kind of trust relationship because you're kind of putting your vulnerabilities out there also by doing these breathing strategies and kind of just leading by example. It's a good way to develop that rapport because you're breathing together, you're going through that calming experience together. It's also a nice way to start the activity just because once we're able to kind of calm and regulate our systems, right, then the research supports that after our systems are calmer, we're able to learn more, we're able to retain more, our brain is able to process clearer, we're able to make clearer judgments, clearer understanding of what we're doing, right? Attention, learning, and retention is increased when we're uh, calming our system. Okay, and also we're giving our nervous system that experience of calm, and it's able to carry that over into other experiences as well. So in the future, the more that we regulate our nervous system, right? It's shaping it. It's shaping our brain. Our brain is learning from every experience that we give it. So in the future, each experience, each new experience, our brain is kind of a little bit more prepared to deal with it without allowing a very deep emotional or stressful response to be triggered. It's not our fault, it's how our brain has learned to respond to it. So doing these different self-regulating kind of activities just give our brain more experience with such situations in a controlled way and just can help our brain to be more prepared to deal with it for next time, right? So those, self-regulation activities, calming activities are huge. I think they could be helpful if they're done in the routine. Sometimes I say even daily. I think daily is a good one, but it depends on everybody's individual, routine, individual needs, wants, just what's important. This is just educational, not, medical advice. So just something that I've been using that's been fun, and my students like to become drummers and make sounds and like to learn how it can help their bodies to feel calm and focused as well. Especially as we get older and older, middle school and high school, our students, they like to feel calm, they like to feel in control, and as they're aware of themselves, and that's why, keeping a log maybe and seeing the heart rate, the respirations, you can write it down, and it's just more feedback of, okay, well, this is how we felt in the beginning. Maybe we're using our fist to describe how we felt, and we said we're feeling tight, tense like this, or we're using a temperature and we say we felt hot, or we're using our drums and we say we felt like this. And we saw that our heart rate was higher, our respiratory rate was higher, right? Our body, our brain could be putting our body into a more stressful response, type of situation, right? It thinks that it's a stressful response. So we're breathing faster, more shallow and rapid. And it's just our brain's natural response to it. And we can see those numbers on the paper, do these activities, and then see that our heart rate went down, and then see that our respiratory rate went down. And so it ties it together. Oh, wow, I could do these breathings, I could do these sounds, and this is what happens. It lowers it. So it's been a cool one. And so I just wanted to share it. And I hope that it can be helpful for you, whoever's watching, parents or teachers or therapists, educators, students, people, individuals, right? So hope that it's helpful. All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching, and wish everyone well. Hope everyone has a great day. And thank you again. Bye.